So this is series 2 of the IAmElemental Elements of Power, and it's called Wisdom. We call them wisdom warriors, and I think it's really an important aspect of it because we feel that, there's this notion of knowledge being power, right? And that you can come from a position of power using your brain and not just your brawn. And every series in the IAmElemental universe has a muse. So series 1 was Courage, and our muse was Joan of Arc. And series 2 is Wisdom, and our muse is a Hypatia. And Hypatia was a girl who lived in ancient Alexandria. And her father raised her as a boy, really. He taught her to be a scholar, which was very unusual for the time. So she was an astronomer, a mathematician, and a philosopher. And she taught in university. She was the first woman to do that. And so we loved the fact that she kind of embodied this notion of a polymath, someone who knew a lot about a lot of things and was a STEM superstar before STEM was a word. But we never use them in the literal sense, our muses. Our muses are just as a jumping off point. And so we did a very modern telling of that. So she has her armor and she has her Greek meander on her shoulders to reference the ancient Greek. But we didn't give her, flowy skirts. We gave her a nice pants outfit and, some knee pads and some great boots. And every figure has its own look. So we have creativity, and she has a crossbow because she's hunting down ideas. Ingenuity has an octopus tentacle. We went with the octopus. The octopus is a great problem solver. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the YouTube videos of an octopus like escaping from jars and things. They're very smart. Creativity. On her skirt, she has an outline of the solar system in a nod to Hypatia as an astronomer. Logic has a very geometric armor. Exploration, obviously, is kind of self-explanatory with the wings. The wings were really popular for us in the first series. Our honesty figure had wings. So we knew that we wanted to do another set, but we didn't want to be redundant. We didn't want them to look anywhere where they would seem the same. So we went with this kind of Leonardo da Vinci-esque wing design. Someone actually yesterday said it was steampunkish, which I think is probably true, too, with her goggles. Then we have Mastery. Mastery, we went with kind of like a punk schoolboy look. We were thinking of a schoolboy, a British schoolboy with his cloak, and we took it to another dimension. And then finally we have Oblivion. So every series in the IAmElemental universe has one what we call a dark power. They're not the villain per se, because in the IAmElemental universe, we're saying these are your superpowers, and all the superpowers that you can have, that you ever want or need, are already inside of you. But there are powers like fear or like Oblivion, who have kind of that yin and the yang, right? They're a blessing and a curse. And so with Oblivion, what we're saying is she wears blinders and has her head in the clouds. And on the plus side, you need to be able to forget in order to forgive, right? You can't go around. But at the same time, they say if you forget the past, you're doomed to repeat it. So there's this balance of that, and that's what we were going with Oblivion. And we were really proud of the way she turned out. Believe it or not, those clouds were the hardest thing. That was one of the first design elements that I conceived, and it was one of the last design elements finished because it was the hardest one to get right, but we think that we did.
There's usually a bigger figure associated with these lines, so yes. When will that be released?
Yes, so the goal is October. So we're hoping to be able to reveal Wisdom, the 6-inch is Wisdom, at Comic-Con in October in New York. That's the goal. And again, she'll have the hyper-articulation of the Courage figure, which has more than 30 points of articulation. And then from there, we move on to Series 3, which is Justice. And Justice has a whole new muse and a whole different look, and that will be the third series.
Any hints to what Justice's muse will be?
No, we give no hints. In fact, we had a Who's the Muse contest the week before we launched, and it was fun for us to hear everybody's ideas. And we actually did have a winner. We have someone who did guess Hypatia. But we think that's kind of the fun of it. And part of the reason that we can't hint at it, quite frankly, is that it really informs the theme and the design, and we don't want to give that away. So if we gave you a hint at that Hypatia had been who she was, I think people would have known about, ancient Greek, and started thinking that they thought they knew what would be inside in the design. So I think it's more fun this way, and it's fun for us, I think, too. It keeps us engaged in the process, having a little secret.
And for the 6 figures, we'll be doing a lunchbox kit as well.
For the set of 7, yes, we do have a lunchbox set. Right now, during pre-orders, only during pre-orders until they're gone, we have a collector's kit that we sell. We have this wonderful collector's tin. We did it during Kickstarter for Courage, and it sold out. And we created it kind of at the last minute while we were in the middle of Kickstarter for the collectors. And it was beautiful and really well received. So we're doing another limited edition collector's tin that I suspect will be gone during pre-sales. And then the other thing that I should mention that's changed is that our Courage figures initially were in mystery packs. So they were in blind bags. And we're not doing that with Wisdom. We listened to the feedback from the community, the collector community, and so they're blisters this time. So you will be able to actually see your figure. Because they're so cool, we thought people should be able to see them.
Now, like you said, started off with Kickstarter, and now you move beyond that. So was that easier to do, to move on from one platform to the next?
Well, Kickstarter was really wonderful for us. We called it testing the hypothesis. So when we launched on Kickstarter, it was May of 2014, and we had a $35,000 ask, and it was filled in 48 hours. And we ended up making $163,000, and we had backers in all 50 states, 2,500 plus backers, and 6 continents. And it was a wonderful platform for introducing the figures. We are living in a very interesting time, in the sense that here I am, just a random person who came up with an idea for an action figure, and I was able, through the miracle of the internet, to find a designer, find a factory, find distribution in a way that would have probably never happened even 10 years ago. Having said that, marketing is tough, so using Kickstarter as a jumping off platform for us proved to be amazing, and we were so grateful for it, and the collector community really embraced us. The reason we were fulfilled in 48 hours was the collector community, and so that's really driven us forward and pushed us forward, and that's why, like I said, we go to Comic-Con, and we've been doing those sorts of things. But I do think for someone like myself, who isn't a large company, it's a wonderful entree, and it really did give us that lift.
Now, when you say collector community, you talk you're talking about the hardcore comic book fans, which is mainly male dominated, but now you're mainly focused towards women and girls.
Yeah, listen, it's been fascinating, because you're right. We were conceived as a company. We were the world's first company that ever designed a female action figure for girls. Having said that, we had 3 components, right? There were 3 things we were doing. The first thing we did, you're right, was create a figure that had a healthier breast to hip ratio. We call it less Hooters, more heroin, right? So we were trying to address the hypersexualization of the action figure and make a toy for a child. The second thing that we were doing was we reinvented the superhero myth, right? So in the IAmElemental universe, the girl is the superhero and the figures are the personification of her powers. But the third thing that we did is we tried to be really forward-thinking in the design and engineering. We had what we called a Pandora's box, and so we had a box of figures. A lot of them were kind of the things we said we didn't want to do, right? The things we didn't want her head to be smaller than her bust. We didn't want there to be, too sexualized a bum, those kinds of things. Having said that, we also had a box of figures that we did like and we loved and we wanted to emulate. And we really loved a lot of the Figma figures, a lot of the figures coming out of Japan were real inspirations for us in terms of what you can do with articulation, what you can do with a sculpt, what you can do with a paint out. And we always said if they weren't really cool and fun to play with, then there'd be no point. No one would want them. And I think that what was happening is the collector community was responding to the attention that we were paying to that aspect of it. But what happens is wonderful because I get emails every week from wonderful collectors who say things like, I bought your figure because I loved the paint out, but I've read the book and I think every girl should have it. And so we had this wonderful experience. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but at Comic-Con this year, I actually called the UN and I called UN Women and I said, I want to invite you to my booth because I have these wonderful collectors who are collecting my Girl Power product, and they like the figures, but they also are embracing the message. And I felt that it was a real example of how the media often portrays the collectors in a very different light from who they really are as a group. And so the UN came to our booth. They have an organization called He for She, which is soliciting signatures from men in support of gender equality. And we were at Comic-Con for 4 days, obviously, and in 4 days, not one man turned us down. And we got hundreds and hundreds of signatures from wonderful collectors who really were supportive, not just of the figures, but of the messaging. And so I think that I'm so grateful to them, and I strive to make them happy. That Courage figure with her 30 points of plus points of articulation, that was for the collectors. That was kind of really trying to push it forward for them. So I'm trying to respond to both their interest in the figures so that I can grow the brand, but also push the message.
Now, aside from the IAmElemental figures, I see you also doing like plates, glasses.
Yeah, it's funny. That was really, it was almost, I don't want to call it a one-off, but what was happening is that we were in development on Series 2, and there was so much interest. People, our current customers wanted more. And so we created the cup bowl and a plate as kind of a fun little holding placeholder while we were working on Courage, the larger figure, because we were able to turn it around quickly. And it's a lot of fun. It's like one of those things where you kind of, if you have a young person in your life, you have a closet full of, kitty plates and bowls and cups. And so it was a fun thing. We said, let's feed their power. And the company was wonderful to work with. They did a really nice job. But that was just it was a fun project that we squeezed in because the turnaround time was fast.
Do you have any plans for like maybe going on to a cartoon series, or just are you sticking with a comic book?
Well, it's funny. So one of the things it's funny. I will say that one of the criticisms that we got earlier on from the collector community, we got accused a little bit of being lazy because we don't have a backstory. But that was deliberate. We like to say we don't have a backstory because we're trying to tell new stories. And so the IAmElemental figures were conceived specifically. Every power has a definition and a superpower. So, for instance, exploration, she can transport herself anywhere in the world. And oblivion can erase the memories of people. And mastery can duplicate herself. So what we've done is we call it dropping the breadcrumbs, right? So we give the child a tiny little bit of story, just enough for them to create their own story. And that was a really deliberate thing. Having said that, obviously, people have really been pushing us on content and this desire for content. And we've had a lot of interest from media companies that want to help us to convert this into a larger, media project. And, my husband says the answer to every question is, well, that depends. And so we wouldn't do anything unless it was perfect and unless it was right and unless it really fit within the messaging of what we're trying to do. So it's going to take some time to really figure out which direction we need to go in that without losing our core identity. But I suspect that at some point, yes, there will be more content-related material available.
Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for your interest, and thank you to all of your viewers for their interest too. We really appreciate it.